Hey Space Watchers, we had a great time and a great conversation in Bremen, direct in front of the clean room with the two Orion ESM modules. But unfortunately, in the first 12 minutes of our conversation, we had technical difficulties, as many of you that watched it could experience as well. That problem was solved during the production. We decided to skip the first minutes here in the video and jump to the point where you could hear us clear. We apologize for any inconvenience, but hey, enjoy the show. From the learnings that you might take tomorrow, if everything goes well, or the next whatever mission days we will see, how will that influence the produced modules and then further modules? Further modules, it might be easier, but the current ones, is there an connection to it?
So for the modules, you just mentioned ESM-2, it's FPK, but it's currently undergoing testing. So crew module will be mated shortly, so hard to access it. On this second module, we will not introduce big changes for convenience because we can fine-tune a little bit. So this will be only opened up, knock on wood, if we really find something that would not be correct. Then, of course, we would have to do that and correct the hardware on ESM-2. But for the things that we're expecting, fine-tuning of thermal, maybe power and so on, for those things we are having here behind us, we see it, ESM-4, we have the structure here, lots of time to introduce changes on that one to bring it closer to the actual mission.
There's nothing what you can't fix with duct tape, isn't there? Actually. Okay, let's go to a further exploration. Let's take a bolder view into that. Laura, Airbus is the manufacturer, the workbench of many exploration devices, as we can see here. How far are these orders coming from private companies today and tomorrow? So are you fully depending on institutional orders?
I think that's a really good question. And I think it's one of the challenges we have for the space exploration business as a whole, in that this notion of institutional or private customers, in a sense, we need to put that to the side. We need to look at what is the user experience, the user scenario. It's what we talked about previously. If we're sat having this conversation, say, on the moon, it's not a question of, is my contract coming from an institution or from a private business? And I think, so with this notion, this is where we're moving more towards what are the capabilities and technologies against the market need. Now, do we have a stronger institutional funding at the moment? Yes, but look at any innovation and technological advancement in the history of industry. And it always starts with governments, with institutions, and then it moves to the public or private funding, so to speak. So this is where we're at that transition period, I feel, for space exploration. And I think also as a whole, when we see the big leaps in the last 20 years, this has changed the mindset. The whole thing about accessibility to space, things that can be done, some of the wonderful technology that we're looking at and we support in smaller businesses and enterprises has changed this approach of it's only large corporations or institutions or someone with really deep pockets that can enter into this market. So, and I think you've had numerous great guests on the Space Café that are talking about how they're providing those kind of services to the private sector. So this is where we as Airbus don't see ourselves as just a manufacturer. We have a vision and a mission, and part of our goal, particularly on space exploration, if I may, is to really take advantage of what we bring from technologies, from our ability to do an end-to-end value chain, to deal with the big picture and make that accessible as much as possible, not only for smaller industries and startups, but how to make it accessible and applicable for humanity. We pioneer a sustainable aerospace for a safe and united world. That is our purpose. So how can we use space to apply on that?
For this future, for its own future?
Airbus already does that on so many different areas. And I think that's the beauty in this company, where we don't have just one focus in terms of a technology or a product or service. And I'm very privileged. So, I mean, I've lost count how many engineers we've got now, but we've got tens of thousands of engineers in our company. And when you see the depth and breadth of their innovation, their creativity, and their competences, I'm not concerned on that. Sure. It's, again, translating that to the funding opportunities for user scenarios and moving away from this which for good reasons was more mission specific. It needs to be scalable, it needs to be modular, with a common architecture and framework so we can advance more quickly together.
Okay. I hear Airbus is always ready. That's great. That's for the future. Kai, you have given us an outstanding insight into ESM, so during the tour and here in our talk. So what and how would your ideal module for future exploration look like? So, or easier to ask, what is missing so far?
That's a hard question. So we have obviously been developing this one for more than 10 years. So a lot of brain went into that. But maybe if I were to make some of the things differently, for me, Orion ESM is really an inspiration to discover beyond the moon on our way to Mars. It's a strategy and a vision where I would, let's say, at least dream that also from European side, at one point, we would be able to put humans onto a rocket and provide them access to space. So it's a great endeavor that we are doing here. But looking at our I would say national programs and also at our European Space Agency, my wish would be, because looking at what we have here in Bremen, we have the launcher business with Ariane Group, who really know how to build rockets. We have the space exploration business here. And if you put both together, today we are going across the Atlantic to make it happen. And that would be a little bit of a dream of myself, to also make use of these synergies that we have here.
ESM is also built for going together with Orion towards Mars or deep space exploration, so not stopping on Mars. Okay,
that's exactly the ambition. So
does it need modification for that?
Oh yes, it for sure.
Foxtail or so.
Yeah, at least
wipers or so.
Yeah, but that's part of the whole journey of Artemis to go beyond the moon. Huh?
Absolutely. Okay, Laura. Hearing Kai's wish list and assuming Airbus has the capabilities to transform these wishes into products. So where's Airbus' strategy when it comes to exploration? And you alluded to that in your last answer. And I would like to follow up a bit on what we had in our very quick interview in Paris at the ISC. So how does the big picture look like? I mean, beyond great, wonderful, shiny.
I think you're referring to the beautiful wall that we had that was very digital and whatnot. I mean, it was stunning. So what's interesting, so we're talking about going to Mars, going further. I totally believe we can do that, but we've got to do it in a structured way. So this is where, again, it comes to what is the user experience, what's the minimum viable product I need to deliver that scenario, okay? And then when I say minimum viable product, I mean, if we take the car industry, can you imagine if we said, no, we're not going to have the Ford Model T, we're going to wait until we've got the Aston Martin or something, then we wouldn't have any cars.
I'm a bit scared when you say minimum viable product and exploration in one sentence.
Well, thank you for bringing that.
Scares me.
Well, this is the minimum viable product does not mean cheap and basic. Okay. What it means is, what is the minimal functionality to do the job in a very safe and robust way, okay? And then you add on features and functionalities to improve it, to make it better. So the car was safe. It did the job going A to B. It didn't have the cruise control and the heated seats right at the start. So this is the
and
difference.
it has a damn human factor in it.
It does have a human factor. But so this is where we've got to look at the capabilities and the technologies, and how do we evolve those technologies according to the current maturity of technologies today. If we take something like, and it's always a favorite of mine, virtual reality. So you take the HoloLens, the first one they had, it was awful. It gave you a headache when you put it on. The second version was improved, more comfortable. And then they're constantly developing on that. And then how do I use it in an application for doing training, for doing real-time maintenance, or doing assembly? So it's been a gradual evolution, but if you wait to get the perfect solution that you want to see, you're never going to get started. So this is where we want to separate what's the capability and the technology, and where can we have then synergies of those technologies? So we're not going for a specific mission and then we do another one and we reinvent the wheel. How can you do it in an architectural way that can be evolved and scalable? So this is where we want to move that in terms of our strategy. And there's another interesting topic, and I hear people talk about commercial or defense or everything else. And I'm like, well, if I have to dock in space, I have to dock in space. The docking mechanism doesn't say, well, this is for a defense use case, or this is for a commercial tourist thing. It's still the same technology. So breaking that down, I think, will enable us to go quicker, to collaborate more effectively. And as we discussed earlier, my objective is to advance human space exploration because I believe it is for the benefit of humanity. And if we're doing it in a sensible way, well, we're still generating innovation and having that competitiveness in a healthy way, but not having the waste and duplication, that is a win for everyone. And this is where I think we've taken those first steps in Europe, and we're getting better and better at it.
Great. So, Kai, last question here on that block. There is this bold vision of the Airbus leadership, what Laura just alluded to. So, when it comes to physics, when it comes to reality, where do you see the biggest challenges? And I'm deliberately not asking about the money.
So if we are speaking about further space exploration, and this is now me speaking with my engineering heart, I see two major challenges. One is the propulsion. How to get to Mars in a manageable time frame, that we can also send humans who don't have to be tackled in their seats for 3 months. So that's a challenge, propulsion. Second one is radiation. How do we survive with all the electronics up there? How do we bring more computing power, which require smaller chips, but which are then more prone to radiation in space? So that is, I would say, the second technical challenge. But I think that we can manage this one. At least I would say it's manageable. The thing that we need to work on, coming from an industry which is used to be building up on institutional experience, I would say that the main challenge is to acknowledge that space exploration is becoming more and more normal, and that we are maybe challenging some of our standards, requirements, whatever there is, which are there for a good reason. So once we are starting to explore and doing things for the first time, we need to make sure that we are having the technology under control before we can start to break the rules again. But I think the more normal this is now becoming, the more we need to ask ourselves which set of rules that we have given ourselves over the last couple of decades can now be broken in order to simplify the whole thing, in order to shorten the time into space and to bring our development cycles down. So, and this challenge, and here this is looking into engineering, into the quality organization, the way we are breaking down the standards into our supply chain, all of that needs to become a little more agile, I would say, and a little more normal. And I think that mindset change that we need to have here in order to achieve that is, I think, the biggest challenge.
Sure, but Airbus is ready for that.
Well,
I heard about it.
This is exactly it, which is taking the orbital region is literally a great area for quick rapid testing. Then going to something like the moon, first of all, it's got a physical base, so easy. I say easy. I mean, you've obviously testament that it's been very difficult the last 10 years, but, instead of going to Mars, but going to somewhere like the moon, having that sustainable human presence, what are the different technology elements we need for resource management, energy management, radiation, habitation, all these different topics, not to mention some of the technologies we're developing for oxygen, water. We know this is feasible. We've got teams in Airbus, there are other companies around the world looking at how we can take advantage of the natural resource available. And it's just around the corner, technically. So if we can have that kind of building up the maturity before then we take the next steps. And who knows what else we're going to discover there or develop in terms of manufacturing processes or new discoveries that might be had. So this is also part of the thing, doing it in a pragmatic way that, again, is scalable and it makes sense logically. So hopefully that will speed up your technical wish list as well.
Before we running out of time, I would like to talk about what will happen next week. I mean, we are here among friends in our very private environment. But let's take out about our crystal balls and talk about the next week. And for those of you that can't make the link, next week we will have the ESA Ministerial Council of the Member States, in short CM22, where the ESA member states will commit their budgets for the next 3 years. So there's a lot at stake at the moment. And ESA's DG, Josef Aschbacher, is asking for 18 billion euro roughly for the next 3 years to keep Europe on its path to space. Laura, straightforward question. How big is your panic factor looking into the next week? So what do you expect?
Well, as a Scottish person, I don't tend to panic. So what I will say is I'm very positive about what's going to happen next week. Obviously, we've got great ongoing programs that we need to still keep going through and complete. They're there for a good reason. The science is exploration. So securing those elements and looking towards the future, towards a user scenario. If we take something like the Large Lunar Lander, this is, all right, we've got humans going to the moon, they're going to need stuff delivered. So it's taking that breakdown of the value chain. So for me, I see this in a really positive step forward. Can we do more? We can always do more. But I think the ambition is coordinated and consolidated together. And what I've also I've been appreciative of is that the different players are really trying to find the best ways to work together on this as well. It's not a competitive environment in that sense.
Okay. If the budget shifts, what might be the consequences for the program you're working on? Will there be any?
So we are having European obligations towards the US. So, and if ESA would decide to postpone that, first of all, I would be highly surprised because it's a delivery obligation in an intergovernmental agreement. And we as Europe, we will not break our promise. I'm absolutely certain. If worse comes to worse, then of course it will have consequences. Obviously, if there's no budget, there's no program. That's it.
Okay. I was in a number of meetings over the last month with politicians, and where they got to be convinced about space exploration, and especially human space exploration, to differentiate here. And how does event scenarios look like for you if you talk with them? Because there were a number of events also from Airbus who convinced them about why is it needed. So the question to both of you, if that question makes any sense for you.
It totally makes sense. And it's one of the things that, so we love space. We don't need to be convinced. What we need to demonstrate, not just to politicians, but to the population as a whole, this is why what's next in space is good for humanity. I mean, I take some of the topics we look at in medical science, growing 3D organoids, which are going to benefit medical science in the future. I mean, the possibilities are mind-blowing, looking at how you could solve diseases or look at organs eventually in the future. I mean, we're a long way from that, but we're taking those first steps. The same on the technology. We look at the climate crisis and everything else. So we've got to be showing that next in space, what we're doing next in space is not just for the vanity of, I want to go into space and I've got lots of money. It's because we're taking that technology and we're doing some great stuff with it that's helping humanity today. And that's who we are as humans. And humans need to grow and to pioneer, or else we get difficult situations such as we see on this bloody earth today. So this is where we've got to support politicians with that storyline that is accessible to the wider population of the 8 billion people on this planet, and not just for the few.
Politicians these days, where they have different priorities, and we don't have to name them, all of them, but human space flight or human space exploration is potentially not among the top 10 right now.
And it's again making it relatable. I think it's what we discussed. I mean, one of the clearest examples is my sister, who is constantly on Facebook on her phone. Well, she wouldn't be doing that today if it wasn't for space exploration. So, you know, it's really breaking it down to the things that are important. And I still come back to the whole energy management of the challenge that we have today, I think is one of the biggest avenues for success. So, but there are many different other angles, and we've got to listen and see, well, what is it people are saying to you as well?
To that, so I think we should also put it into perspective what the overall national budget is. To me, it feels right. It's something like 10 to 12 euros per person in Germany. And we just touched on that spin-off discussion, where we can see that most of the spin-offs coming from space are also a product of coincidence, things that were hard to predict before. So it's for us as space enthusiasts always a bit difficult to pinpoint what is the next spin-off to come. Take, for example, the example of semiconductors. So that was the invention to bring the size of electronics down. Mm-hmm. And if you asked, for example, IBM at the time, they had no interest in having smaller semiconductors because they said, well, I have a big building here and I can fill that up with the tubes or whatever. So it was space at first who said, yeah, I'm having an interest in making electronics small. And out of that, the semiconductor industry arose. And if we now today look around, virtually nothing here on this planet is imaginable without semiconductors anymore. So, and that's just one example. So here I think we should free ourselves a little bit from the idea, if I want to invest now in space, I now want to have the selling story. Yeah. But there are many, many things opening up, which are then developing out of the context and will be later on applied. And that was only one example that I've just mentioned to you.
Okay. And 10 euro spent on space. It's just, I think this winter, 1.5 days of heating in your house. So yeah. You have to relate it. You have to find a language that your audience can follow. And I mean, coffee is too easy, but heating is today, I think, very important.
That is true. That would be the standard 2 Starbucks coffees or something.
I thank both of you for ending up on this positive note. I mean, I took it as positive, so I don't have to ask specifically for something positive. Emma, asking back, do we have any question from our audience, or are they totally satisfied with our program so far?
They are totally satisfied. No questions. Sorry, Thorsten, you have to be creative.
That's no problem. So then I would like to thank you, and then getting back to Emma for the closing remarks. Thank you, Laura, for your time, and thank you, Kai, for giving us a tour and the insights into this wonderful facility here.
Thank you for being here.
I'm handing that back to.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So we're going to have some exciting appointments next coming week. The 22nd of November at 4 p.m. Central European Time, SpaceWatch will host a new series of Space Café Black Ops, which is our geopolitical series, with me in the host chair and the wonderful Dr. Namrata Goswami, who is a space geopolitics expert and analyst, and she's going to be our guest for 6 episodes. We will discuss together about the various aspects of the geopolitical space power scene. And the 24th of November at 9:30 a.m. Central European Time and 5:30 p.m., we will have live from Sydney Space Café Low Breakfast with Steven Freeland. And in this episode, you will welcome Olga Volinskaya and Lucien Rapp at the virtual version of this magnificent Café Le Bibin in Toulouse to discuss many legal issues arising from everyday space activities. And on the same day, so the 24th of November at 4 p.m., again, Central European Time, Space Café Scotland by Angela Mattis, in association with Astro Agency, will discuss about a sustainable space strategy for Scotland. And last but not least, on the 30th of November at 6 p.m. Central European Time, this might not be on the slides because it was last minute, we will have Space Café Italy, and the episode we will host the president of the Italian Space Agency, Engineer Giorgio Saccoccia. So if there is some Italian speakers among you, please don't lose it, don't miss it. All the events are going to be online on Eventbrite. As always, we will love to hear from you, your feedback, so please come to visit us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Don't forget to sign up for our daily and our bi-weekly newsletter. And if you like to treat yourself to something special, please become a Space Watcher today or help us in the supporter program. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Kai. It was a pleasure. Thank you also for the tour. I loved it. For the inspiring talk and for being our guest. Thanks, obviously, to the Airbus team, allowing us to arrange the live from the base. Thanks again to our entire team, Claudia and Frank behind the scene on the director chair, for doing a great job every day and every week. Thanks a lot. Stay safe, stay healthy. Winter is coming, and thanks for joining us. You never know, another year. Thank you for joining us, and I hope to see you all next week. In the meantime, visit our website and follow us on social media. And don't forget,
become a space watcher.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.